There should be no lights.
Oh, true. If we go old school, we won't have lights. All right. How about the runaway bunny? Are we ready?
Yes.
Look, there's a bunny on the front. A friend gave me this book, and I wanted to share it with you. Because we're going to talk today with the big kids about God being with us. So let's look at this bunny. Once there was a little bunny who wanted to run away. So he said to his mother, "I am running away." "If you run away," said the mother, "I will run after you, for you are my little bunny." You've read it before? Awesome. "If you run after me," said the little bunny, "I will become a fish in a trout stream and I will swim away from you." It's kind of like a rerun for you, but it's still a good book. "If you become a fish in a trout stream," said mother, "I will become a fisherman and I will fish for you." And look, there's a picture of mom with a carrot on the end of a fishing pole with the bunny. "If you become a fisherman," said the little bunny, "I will become a rock on the mountain high above you." "Well, if you become a rock on the mountain high above me," said his mother, "I will be a mountain climber and I will climb to where you are." She's not giving up. Look, she's becoming a mountain climber and climbing after the bunny. Let's see what's next. "If you become a mountain climber," said the little bunny, "I will be a crocus in a hidden garden." That's a flower. See the pretty flower there? It's a flower. "If you become a crocus in a hidden garden," said his mother, "I will be a gardener and I will find you." Looky there. Mom is in the garden.
More like a farmer than a farmer.
It looks more like a farmer than a gardener. Pretty close. But you're right. "If you're a gardener and you find me," said the little bunny, "I will be a bird and I will fly away from you." Is that bunny going to fly away?
No.
"If you become a bird and fly away from me," said his mother, "I will be a tree that you come home to." Oh, look. The bunny's got wings. That's silly. "If you become a tree," said the little bunny, "I will become a little sailboat and I will sail away from you." "If you become a sailboat and sail away from me," said his mother, "I will become the wind and blow you where I want you to go." And there's the mama bunny blowing the sailboat. "If you become the wind and blow me," said the little bunny, "I will join a circus and fly away on a flying trapeze." If you go flying on a trapeze," said his mother, "I will be a tightrope walker and I will walk across the air to you." Look at that, they're in the circus. "If you become a tightrope walker and walk across the air," said the little bunny, "I will become a little boy and run into a house." "If you become a little boy and run into a house," said the mother bunny, "I will become your mother and catch you in my arms and give you a hug." You guys ever get hugs? Do you get hugs? Occasionally? Yes. There they are, hugging. "Shucks," said the bunny, "I might as well just stay where I am and be your little bunny." It looks like old school because it's black and white. And so he did. "And have a carrot," said the mother bunny. The TVs were black and white in the 50s. And that's an important thing to remember.
62.
And they had very few channels. And
And
as we circle back around to the bunny, what can we learn from the mama bunny? Did she ever give up on us? Or give up on the little bunny? And guess what we're going to talk about with the big kids today? How God will not give up on us, just like that mama bunny. That's a pretty cool thing.
Just be yourself.
Just be yourself. Don't try to be other things. And God's not going to give up on us, just like the mama bunny. You'll be a rock? Well, that's the end of the sermon, and we have a new rock. Thank you very much for joining us
No,
today.
we didn't.
Thank you very much. Are we going to have fun? All right, there we go. I'll use my outside voice so everybody can hear me. The mic is giving a little bit of a feedback. Can everybody hear me all right? Yes. We're good? All right. If you'll join me in the Gospel of Luke, chapter 23, we're going to read verses 33 through 43. I'm reading from the NLT, or the New Living Translation, so it'll be a little bit different than the Pew Bibles. When they came to a place called the Skull, they nailed him to the cross. And the criminals were also crucified, one on his right and one on his left. Jesus said, "Father, forgive them, for they don't know what they are doing." And the soldiers gambled for his clothes by throwing dice. The crowd watched, and the leaders scoffed. "He saved others," they said. "Let him save himself if he is really God's Messiah, the chosen one." The soldiers mocked him too by offering him a drink of sour wine. They called out to him, "If you are the king of the Jews, save yourself." A sign was fastened above him with these words, "This is the King of the Jews." One of the criminals hanging beside him said, "So you're the Messiah, are you? Prove it by saving yourself and us too, while you're at it." But the other criminal protested, "Don't you fear God even when you have been sentenced to die? We deserve to die for our crimes, but this man hasn't done anything wrong." Then he said, "Jesus, remember me when you come into your kingdom." And Jesus replied, "I assure you, today you will be with me in paradise." Today, the Sunday before Thanksgiving, on this Christ the King Sunday, I wish to share with you a message of hope. A message of God's presence in the world and in our lives, no matter who we are, where we're from, or what we might have done. A message from the lectionary text from the book of Luke, and while at times graphic and a bit blunt, a message that is indeed applicable to today, tomorrow, and in fact, any day at all. I caution all, there might be some emotional triggers today. Some words that might cause self-reflection. Some words that might bring to mind past or current situations that are hard emotionally to process. I urge each one of you to take the time and space needed to do that processing as we talk about this message of hope. Today we come to Luke's account of Jesus' crucifixion. Luke is the only gospel to record the words of the men crucified while Jesus was on the cross, and to report a conversation among these three dying men. Mark 15:32 says, "Only that those who were crucified with Jesus taunted him also." Let's begin by looking at verse 32, which is a little bit before the lectionary. Two others who were criminals were led away to be put to death with him. The scene is set. Three people have been sentenced to die. While the names of the two criminals are not shared in the Gospels, Old Latin manuscript supplies names for these two crucified with Jesus: Joathus and Magatros. For today, Joathus will be our focus, and we'll probably just call him Joe, if you'll allow it. In verse 33, Luke departs from the other gospel writers in calling the place where Jesus was crucified as the skull. The name probably reflects the shape or other features on the hill on which Jesus and the others were crucified. Luke, in his brief description of the crucifixion, provides no great details regarding the shape of the cross, its size, or the way Jesus was affixed to it. And although crucifixion was widespread at the time, there are few detailed descriptions of crucifixion. We find through study that crosses were made in many ways. Some had their victims with a head
down to the ground, which we don't normally see. Some impale on parts of the body that I'll simply say we cover with swimsuits today. And others were crucified with their arms outstretched, which is what we normally see. In verse 34, the first thing Jesus does is to pray for those who have crucified him. Well, this image of Jesus being crucified on the cross does not necessarily set well with a lot of us. Jesus has prayed to his Father repeatedly throughout Luke and taught his followers to forgive. For the sake of time and today's focus, we're then going to look at verse 39. Each one of these verses could be preached and researched for multiple sermons, but today, let's look at the man some might call Joathus or Joe. One of the criminals hanging beside him scoffed, "So you're the Messiah, are you? Prove it by saving yourself and us too while you're at it." But the other criminal protested. But Joe protested. "Don't you fear God even when you have been sentenced to die? We deserve to die for our crimes, but this man hasn't done anything wrong." Then he said, "Jesus, remember me when you come into your kingdom." The first man to speak in this narrative makes a similar request to Joe: "Save us." However, Joe makes his request a bit differently. While his crime is never specified, and his penitence is conveyed only by his acknowledgement of his guilt, his request is that Jesus is to remember him. Joe's words fulfill Jesus' instructions to his disciples if we look back at Luke 17, verse 3. "If your brother sins, rebuke him, and if he repents, forgive him." Forgive? Forgive him? Forgive her? Forgiveness is extreme, don't you think? I mean, people do stuff wrong, right? We need to forgive. That's the example that's being set. I wish to share with you today the words of a man who speaks of his first day incarcerated. While not the graphic crucifixion story we heard, it's a modern connection to our tale of Joathus, or Joe. The air seemed to reek with the smell of apathy and bleach. A weight like the weight of the world must have been placed on my head and shoulders and chest as I stepped over the threshold into my cell. Four walls painted some type of beige, a ceiling the same indistinct color, and a steel gray concrete floor seemed to push in around me as I was thrust into my new home. My senses cried out for a sense of belonging, of warmth, or the smallest, most minute speck of comfort in which I could curl into and hide. But none was found. The ancient green vinyl mat full of lumps and bumps and valleys of overuse would serve as my bed, the white industrial sheet stained for multiple others my cover, and there would be no pillow to lay my head. As my eyes continued to survey my room, my cell, my new home, I noticed a television encased in a protective plexiglass box. At least there might be some escape from the hell that I had made for myself. The toilet, as I gasped, was directly under the television and in plain sight for all to see. How pleasant it must be to watch your favorite show and your cellmate defecate at the same time. How pleasant indeed. I wondered exactly how long I could endure without having to undergo the humiliation of public urination and defecation. A shower without a curtain stood in the corner of the room. My life was gone. My family was gone. My basic privacy was taken away abruptly. Just before my composure starts to break, a meal tray was passed through a hole in the door. The chuck hole, as it was termed, and I now knew how I was to be fed like the dangerous animals at the zoo. It was at this point I discovered that I felt no longer human. The loss of self, the loss of family, and the loss of basic privacy to complete simple bodily process is often overwhelming to the inmate in modern day. Dealing with the logistics of life incarcerated can be daunting and sometimes insurmountable for the person who's been charged with a crime, and dealing with the emotional ramifications of those losses and actions committed unimaginable. The inmate will face grieving, suffering, and while the story expressed above deals only with the physical attributes of the internment, the mental struggle of a crime committed and dealing with that suffering and brokenness is the mountain in the distance. The mountain we must climb when we are offering forgiveness to those who are held in a space where comfort is often not found. Human suffering exists. It would be infantile to state that it does not permeate our world today. None of us wish to be the subject to suffering and hardship, and ideally we would go through life in a perfect, happy state, but often that does not happen. Suffering and grief happens on many levels. For some, they become victims of senseless crimes of anger, greed, addiction, and countless other acts of mental and physical violence. For others, they victimize those around them, and they commit crimes for a plethora of reasons, whether that be their own inward struggle with addiction, sin, or just simply bad judgment. Suffering simply exists in our world due to a God allowing creation free will. And sometimes people choose wrong. We're all free to choose, are we not? Some choose wisely, yet some, even all, make mistakes. While we are all God's children, a clear majority of the children sometimes forget. It's these choices that free will has given us that cause us suffering sometimes to our families, our communities, and our world today. I wonder what Joe would have to say about his suffering. If we use our spiritual imagination, if you'll join me for just a second in imagining what Joe might share with us if he were to speak. What message could we learn about suffering from a man who is at the end of his life and experiencing the greatest suffering that he had ever known?
Have you ever felt like nobody was there? Have you ever felt forgotten in the middle of nowhere? Have you ever felt like you could disappear? Like you could fall and no one to you? So let that lonely feeling wash away, 'cause maybe there's a reason to believe you'll be okay. 'Cause when you don't feel strong enough to stand, you can reach out your hand and hold. Someone will come running, and I know they'll take you home. Even when the dark comes crashing through, when you need a friend to carry you, and when you're broken on the ground, you will be found. So let the sun come streaming in, 'cause you'll reach up and you'll rise again. Lift your head and look around. You will be found. You will be found. be found.
So, did you hear those words? You will be found. Even at the darkest point of your life, you will be found. I'm sure we've all felt like nobody was there at some point. Felt like no hope existed. The good news is told in the story of Job. Even when the dark was crashing through, when he was broken and dying, he was found. Can you say that with me today? He was found. And Jesus replied, I assure you, today you will be with me in paradise. The words of Christ tell us that while we stand in need of God's mercy, we must simply ask that God might remember us. Jesus, dying among the wretched, seeks forgiveness for all and offers us assurance that we can be found. Say those words with me. We can be found. We can be found in our addiction, our anger, our self-righteousness, our anxiety, our strife, our struggle. God will find us, and there is hope. That's good news, right? Even when the dark comes crashing through, God will find you. So let the sun come streaming in. The morning is breaking, and all is new. We are not alone, my friends. God is with us. We have been found by the one who overcomes death. And on the Sunday of Thanksgiving, let's give thanks for the mercy and the grace and the hope that can be found in Christ.